Movie House Cinemas, proud sponsors of Conversations with Gerry Kelly. Treat yourself to a movie. Relax in VIP recliner seating without the VIP price tag. At Cityside, Glengormley, Mackara and Coleraine. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to this first programme in our new series of Conversations with Gerry Kelly. And I can think of no one better to be my first guest. She is undoubtedly the most famous and the most successful broadcaster ever to come out of Northern Ireland. Since her early days working in Ulster Television to hosting her own national radio and television shows on the BBC, Gloria Hunniford has become a national treasure. She is someone I've admired and looked up to throughout my own broadcasting career, and it's a delight to have her on the show tonight.
That's a lovely introduction, Gerry. Did I write that or did you write it?
No, I wrote that because I meant it. It's a bit like old days, you and I in the same studio at the same time.
Except you were in short trousers, and actually, in all fairness, I think you were a teacher when I first met you.
That's right.
When you joined Ulster Television as a broadcaster.
Back in 1979.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it? But I mean, that was great. That was a great change of occupation for you.
Totally.
But on the other hand, I often thought about that and thought that when you've been a teacher, it's given you a very good broad spectrum, you know, for journalism. And so it was a perfect move for you and a great programme. Good Evening Ulster was a groundbreaking programme, really. So that was a good one to join at the beginning.
Even for you then as well, because you often refer back to those years.
Very much so, because we had a producer who came in from England called Alan Wright.
Yeah.
And Alan believed in breaking the rules, which I think actually we quite liked. And you see, we used to think, well, you can't have Elton John on the programme unless he's performing in the province. You know, there's got to be a reason why he's in the province. And Alan used to say, why? You know, if Rod Stewart wants to come in the programme, even if he's not performing in the province, why not talk to Rod Stewart because he's interesting, or to Peter Houston or whoever. So he broke that rule. And if you remember, we used to fly people in specially for the programme. So that made it groundbreaking, and also because it was 1 hour. I mean, even to this day, local radio stations, local television stations, they only get a half hour of news. And but Brian Waddell, who was the boss at that time, he said, no, I'm going to give the troubles, as they were then, what they're worth on the day. So if they're worth 40 minutes, they'll get 40 minutes, but the rest of the hour we'll take up with Good Evening Ulster.
Yes, because normal life was going on in Northern Ireland, even at the height of the Troubles.
And people were getting fed up, really, with it all being bombs, bullets and barricades. So that was a very groundbreaking move. And, you know, still to this day, local television areas, they still only get half an hour. So it was groundbreaking, and we enjoyed it.
Very much so. The year started out so wonderfully joyous for you when you were given the freedom of the borough that you were born into, and yet it's ended up so terribly sad with the death of your beloved Stephen. It's been a difficult time recently for you.
Very, and I don't want to cry, so we may not talk about it too much, but Stephen and I had been together 30 years. It was our second marriage for each of us, and we were married for 25, and he absolutely suited my temperament, because you know how impulsive I am. And so when we did get together, if I said to him, let's go to Dublin this weekend, he never said, no, but I want to do the garden or something. He said, yeah, let's go. So it was a really lovely relationship from the beginning. So yes, I have wonderful memories of that period, but it's a huge loss. And yes, and I don't want to cry in your programme, particularly show one, but it is very emotional and hard to know what your life is going to be like, because I think up until now, because I am the age I am in my 80s, and so therefore I've always known what my life was, even with my first husband, Don, and so then suddenly at this age you don't know what your life is going to be. But I've worked since I was 7, and this is shocking because I've been in entertainment for 77 years, either singing or broadcasting, and I mean, even saying that, I think that can't possibly be true, but it is. Yeah. And therefore, I've always regarded work as my safe place. And so with all the sort of pain of losing Stephen, I put myself back to work reasonably quickly because I know where I am with work because I've done it for so long. Whereas all the emotional stuff is sort of a different kettle of fish. But then I said to myself, what else can you do? What's the alternative? You've got to try and make your life whatever it is you want to make it from here on in, for whatever length of time that's going to be. And so work is a good thing, you know, for me. May not be for everybody, but it is for me. And if I, for example, said, oh, well, maybe I'll take 3 months off, I'd be bored rigid. What would I do with this brain? I want to keep my brain ticking over. I love the work. You wouldn't do this work sometimes unless you really enjoyed it. You wouldn't stand out in the rain and film. You know, you just wouldn't do it unless you just want to be in it.
Does age worry you now?
It doesn't worry me because, I don't know, it worried me more when I hit those big numbers. But then once you pass the big number, you think, well, this is it, whatever it is. And because I'm still employed, I still do Rip Off Britain, I still do Loose Women, I still do other lovely programmes like yours, and people like James Martin and the cooking and everything. So as long as people want you really to do it, and I want to do it, then I'm going to keep on going. So you never know, I might be the first 100-year-old who's still broadcasting. You never know.
Parkinson's doing it, there's no reason why you can't do it.
AI could set it.
AI would do it.
The pair of us.
Yeah. This is the second time you've had to face death like this through
Yes,
Caron.
it is.
Where does that determination, that grit come from to keep you going?
I don't know, but I think there's no question in my mind, much as I am missing Stephen terribly and the pain is bad, but losing a child is the worst. That is the worst thing that can happen to you. And so Caron's gone now 20 years, and it's taken a lot of time just to get used to the fact that she's not around. But, you know, the mind is a great thing. It tricks you sometimes. And, you know, like, for example, to go back to Stephen's funeral was 1 week in the same church as my grandson, Karen's eldest boy, got married 10 days later. Same church, same vicar. And you think, how am I going to do that? Because on the day of the funeral, I'm a basket case. I can't talk to anybody, you know, don't know what to say. And yet, 10 days later, because of a head job, I said, Charlie and Nicole, his now wife, they have spent a year planning this, and it's got to be joyful. And so I did a head job on myself the night before. I had the most crazy hat, I mean ridiculous hat, full of feathers and all sorts of things. And I was out there talking to everybody, smiling to everybody. But I tell you what it taught me, that I could go to a function even though the pain in here is bad, and enjoy it. And Charlie and Nicole had the most wonderful day, and so did we. And so similarly, you asked me about Caron. There are times that I think, maybe if I went to Australia, where she was for 3 years prior to her passing, maybe she's still in the rainforest. Now, I know it's not true, but there's something that says to me, well, you never know. Now, you're kidding yourself, of course,
I know.
But a head job is pretty good sometimes, and we can all do it.
You still believe in feathers?
Absolutely believe in feathers. In fact, there's a lovely, we're talking here about single white feathers. We're not talking about a bunch of feathers that have come from a dove up above. And there's a single white feather at my front door on the mat. And I have never removed it because I like it being there when I come in through the door. Because some people think it's ridiculous. But Caron used to think that a single white feather was the calling card of an angel. And I believe that that's Caron's calling card now. And I don't care if people believe it or not. A lot of people do, by the way. But I just think if it brings you comfort, so what?
So what? What about your own health, Gloria? Because there was speculation after the death of Stephen. You even discussed this on Loose Women. How are you health-wise yourself?
Well, health-wise, I think I'm pretty good, but I have lost weight. And there's no doubt about it. The combination of going to the hospital every day for weeks on end, for 5 or 6 hours, you come home, you're tired, you've got to do it again the next day. You want to do it the next day, but you make yourself a bit of toast and a cup of tea and you go to bed and do it all over again. So I probably wasn't eating correctly, and I did lose over a stone in weight. And of course, it comes off the face, but really it came off the body terribly. So I don't look in the mirror at all now. But I have put a little bit of weight back on again. I'm consciously eating 3 good meals a day and proper meals. But funny enough, the doctor was saying to me that 3 months after you lose somebody really close to you, that's when a lot of the stuff sets in, whether it's affecting your skin or your hair or whatever. And so you just have to be aware that you've gone through a lot in the last year in particular, because Stephen was on chemo for a whole year. And it's worrying. When you love somebody, it's worrying.
Of course, of course.
So
you had a lot of good friends help you over it all, didn't you?
Very
good. A lot
good.
of celebrity friends.
Yes, I mean, it's funny, even people that I know but don't know very, very well, they go, we'll have to do lunch. And because Stephen was ill, there's a lot of stuff that we didn't do or couldn't do, but now I do it all. I've learned I spent years learning how to say no, and now I say yes to everything.
We started off the year was a wonderful start to the year when you were bestowed the freedom of Armagh, and we were all there that day.
Yes.
It was the most wonderful day. That must have been a very proud day for you.
It was a surprising day, because although I knew I was getting the freedom of Armagh, which you rightly say is where I was born and brought up and lived really for many years, but I hadn't anticipated how marvellous it would be. And they'd really gone all out, because the whole of the council members in their lovely red robes, and a friend of mine had let me borrow a lovely green dress that matched the red robes, and it was just amazing. And then a lot of people had been invited whom I knew, and it was great just to look down in the audience, and you did it lovely, This Is Your Life on Me, as part of the entertainment, at least we think it was entertainment. And it just was sensational, but I was kind of gobsmacked at the enormity of it.
Yeah. I was thinking that day, and I still think today, had your mum and dad been there at that day, my goodness.
They would have been so proud.
The pride in their...
Because they lived in Armagh all the time, and my mother came from a farm that actually is in Armagh, and I went out to see it not that long ago, and for a film for the One Show or something like that. And you know that the basic house was still the same, the land was still the same, and I could remember so many wonderful school holidays there. It was fantastic.
How proud would they have been to see their,
they would have been
their
very
big
proud.
daughter walking up and getting the freedom of it?
They would.
It was wonderful. Looking back at your career, you know, I knew you back from 1979 when you were still working here, but by any way you want to gauge it, you've had the most remarkable and successful career.
I have, and you know, I've been given it. I've been really lucky. I do believe that when you are bestowed luck, that you have to make the most of it. Like, for example, I was going to be a singer. And by the way, I have an album being re-released in the new year. So Life is Going the Circle.
Brilliant.
Re-released. It was made in the 80s. But I'm very pleased at that, because my ambition as a youngster was, because I started to sing, as I mentioned, when I was 7. And a lot of people would be shocked to hear that there was no television then. And so the entertainment was homespun. So we would be in church hall, parochial halls, you know, schools, everywhere. And it was like a variety show. So people would ring bells, they would have comedians. My dad was a magician by night and a newspaper man by day. And of course, from the age of 4, I would stand side at all those guest teas, they called them, or concerts. Yeah. And I wanted to sing. And I'd always sung. And my parents told me that, you know the big Bakelite radios? Yeah. Huge. That was up on a shelf in our kitchen. And apparently, from a very early age, I would stand on a chair and sing into the...
speakers.
The speakers, yeah. And because I worked on the assumption, even as a child, that if I could hear them, that they were bound to hear me, and that they would come and say, you, singing Buttons and Bows, we want you. But of course they never did until much later. But that was training. When I talked to my grandchildren about the fact that there was no television, they went, no television, what did you do, you know? And then the other thing is that when I started in TV, I'd had a bit of experience in Canada, where I was for a year. Yes. But when I started in television, I was a production assistant. And so I learned backstage, calling shots for the cameras, back timing. A director would say to you, how long to the end of the programme? You had to know exactly. How long to the end of this item? You had to know exactly. So it taught me to read a clock. So when I started to present on radio, I knew how to get to the news. So it was all great training. And I have to tell you, whatever I have done since then, I got all my training in Northern Ireland, and I dwell on it. I use it every single day.
That's fabulous to hear.
I do.
When you went to England, I remember you got the job with Radio 2. Given the job on Radio 2. It took some bottle to go over there with your Northern Ireland accent, being a female into a male world. How difficult was those early years? I look back and I think it was a very strange time, because it's as if somebody up there moved the pieces, because my husband then, Don, he was a producer-director, yes. And he was offered a job in South Africa at exactly the same time as I was offered Radio 2. And we'd never been apart. This is the strange bit. We'd never been apart for maybe 10 days maximum. And yet he was going one direction, I was going the other. And Caron, my eldest, was at Bristol University. Paul, my next in line, he was in Guildford. Yeah. And Michael was only 10, my youngest. And so we all talked. I remember sitting in the kitchen table in Hillsborough, and Don said, well, you'll be hell to live with if you don't try it. And so that was his attitude. And I similarly said, well, you obviously want to try South Africa. And so we went different ways. And then when Don came back from South Africa after 6 months, which is quite a long time in a marriage, he wanted to go back to Northern Ireland. Now, bearing in mind that I never actually anticipated leaving Northern Ireland, but was given the job and could never, ever ignore a challenge. To this day, I have to try it. It doesn't work, but it might work. And so he wanted to go back to Northern Ireland, but by that stage, I had Radio 2, I was doing big network shows, yeah. I was given my own chat show, Sunday it was called, yeah. And I didn't want to go back, but that just shows you how lives can go different directions. And did that cost the marriage? Yes, it did in the end. Sadly did at the end. Yes. But, but the thing is, looking back, people might say, well, you could have gone back to Northern Ireland and given the rest. But I didn't want to at that time. I was enjoying it. It was thrilling to do. But to go back to your first question, I look back now and I think, gosh, how did I do all of that? Because it is quite something to go from a region into network subjects and into that enormous building in London. And being a woman. And the first woman on Radio 2. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why the man in question came to get me, because years previously I had gone, again, you're naive in a way when you come from Northern Ireland because people are accessible to you here. But I just rang up the boss in BBC London and said, I'm in London, can I pop in for a cup of tea or see you, And it turned out to be the man who came and got me years later. Wow. But I had records under my arm. All I wanted was a play on Radio 2. And then he said to me, what do you think is wrong with Radio 2, if anything? And I said, women on it. You never thought that women picking the children up from school want to listen to a woman. All right, men driving around in their combine harvesters or commercial travellers, they listen. But women making the beds at home or whatever, they might want to listen to a woman. And so 3 years later, having been, telling him what's wrong with his network in London, he was in a bedroom in a hotel in Belfast, and he saw Good Evening Ulster, and he went, that's that girl who came to see me. I'm going to get that girl. Wow. So that's why he offered me the job, to stand in for Jimmy Young, first of all, and then gave me my own show. How ambitious are you, or were you? I wasn't ambitious enough to want to go to London. I wasn't saying, I don't want to be in Hillsborough. I was loving my life, and Good Evening Ulster was top of the tree at that time. But once you're given, I talked about luck, once you're given an opportunity and once you're given luck, I think that you have to grasp it with both hands if you're of that ilk, which I am. And I am in my 80s, and I still love a challenge, and I still want to do it, if it's something that appeals to me. So from that point of view, I don't think that I'm ambitious in that I'm cutthroat, but I think I'm ambitious to do the best I can. Mm-hmm. So whatever it is I try to do it the best that I can. I always do my homework, because Gloria, I have copied you all my life. Homework, research. That's what it's all about. That's what makes you nervous if you haven't got enough research. Yes, yeah. I've never asked you this before. Radio or television? Which would you prefer to do? Because
a bit of both, really, if I'm being honest.
you wouldn't pick one over the other.
No, I wouldn't, because I like television because it gets to a bigger audience. I loved my 13 years on Radio 2. I loved my time with BBC in Belfast. A Taste of Honey, Hunni, which is the name of the record that's being re-released in February.
Lovely.
Just thought I'd drop it in. And so I don't do as much radio now, but any opportunity I have, I do it.
Yeah. We talked about Caron earlier. You set up the trust in Caron's name, which is wonderful because it keeps her name alive, and you're helping a lot of cancer organisations and cancer families. That's still going strong, isn't it?
Absolutely. And what I'm very proud of, it's cancer of all kinds.
Yes.
It's not just breast cancer, from which Caron died. It could be cancer of the eye. It could be just any kind of cancer. And we have a very good secretary, so geographically, and we do it Northern Ireland. We're not allowed to do it outside Britain as such, but we want to give to every region, and we have, thank goodness, given to Northern Ireland a number of times. But I like the feeling of that, and it helps in here, because Caron would be amazed at what's done in her name, and she'd be amazed that it is helping people with all forms of cancer. And we don't aim to raise millions, because I work. Yeah. I can't raise millions. But let's say somebody writes to us and says, we need a hydraulic bed for a cancer patient because of bed sores. It costs £4,500. That's what they get. And the last time I wrote 66 cheques, smaller cheques, not big ones of 50 grand. And the pride that I get in doing that.
I bet.
And the pride that Caron would have. So I think she'll send me down some more white feathers.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes, it would be very nice.
As I say, you've had a remarkable career. You've interviewed A-listers all around the world. Which are you most proud of? Or which will you always remember interviewing?
Well, I think when I did Sunday, which was a chat show for quite a number of years, I don't know how they got the names, but they were all Hollywood greats, all of them. And so Audrey Hepburn, Doris Day, Leslie Caron, Kirk Douglas. Bette Davis. You remember more than me. But I mean, what a thrill that was. I don't know how they got them, but they did. And then I think over the years, for example, I did an interview with Camilla, our Queen, just before she became Queen, because she's very much involved in the Osteoporosis Society. And that was a great thrill because I got to go to the palace. Cliff Richard, as you know, I've known for over 50 years. He's the best interviewee in the world. Get him for your show, because he would talk about that table for about a half an hour. But I suppose maybe going to the palace, because we did the Duke of Edinburgh Awards
excuse me, and you got your OBE at the palace?
And I did. Yeah. I got to, the Queen gave it to me.
Was it actually,
Her Majesty was
her
the
herself
Queen.
that gave it to you?
And there's a bit of a funny story there, because if I shake your hand, I always put my other hand over the clasped hands, okay? Yeah. And apparently when the Queen shakes your hand, you're supposed to leave. That's your sign to go, because she'd already talked to you, not me. The hand was clasped over it. She talked a bit, asked me about Caron's foundation and everything. I'm still holding on, and my family were saying she's never going to let go. And of course the papers the next day said she broke protocol because she was holding both hands of the Queen. But that was great. But that really was for the foundation, partly, not just for showbiz.
We've only a few seconds left.
What a shame.
Rip Off Britain's still going? Still ambitions in television?
I have to tell you, the rip-off stories that are coming up soon, we've got one before Christmas and one after Christmas. The scams are getting worse. Yeah. And I haven't got time to tell you even the details of one of them. But AI is going to create a lot of scams because it's so believable.
It's going to be the future.
I like loose women because we get naughty.
You do get naughty.
We do.
And you don't quite get naughty normally, but you do in Loose Women too.
Well,
Gloria,
give the girl the scope and off she goes.
It's lovely to see you again.
And you too, Gerry. I can't tell you how lovely it is to be here.
Thank you so much for being my guest tonight.
It's my pleasure.
This new year, get ready for an exciting new series that brings you closer to the voices that shape our community. Join me as I sit down with beloved local figures from sport to media, from activists to everyday heroes. We'll journey into their lives, revealing the passions and the inspirations that drive them. Made with the help of our talented students at Belfast Metropolitan College, the next generation of media professionals. So who's talking? Join me to find out.
Heading to the North Coast, the Jet Centre in Caron offers entertainment for everyone. There's an 8-screen movie house cinema with all the best movies, 10-pin bowling, a massive arcade, soft play for the wee ones. Outdoors, there's a mini fun park and gem mining, plus an 18-hole floodlit mini golf course. Rain or shine, there's something for everyone here at the Jet Centre. Find out more at thejetcentre.co.uk.